Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Mr. Kennedy snorted coldly at Ms. Emerson. He looked at Nicole with clear contempt. Ms. Emerson, you seriously can't be thinking that Nicole could win first place and win her bet with me? Her grades are just that. It's fine if she doesn't participate in the math Olympiad anymore. Let's not waste our time here. Nicole sat there quietly as if she had not heard him say anything. She then gave the blabbering Mr. Kennedy an impassive glance. Why, Mr. Kennedy? Are you afraid? Me? Afraid? Mr. Kennedy let out a laugh before sneering. You sure are stubborn. Fine, we'll wait with you. He sat back confidently as he sneeringly looked at the big screen on the stage. He was somewhat impressed with Nicole's psychological fortitude. She refuses to give up first place that even Gary could not get. Mr. Kennedy looked at the stage impatiently, already thinking about how he would humiliate Nicole and Ms. Emerson when they went back later. I need to tell this to Ms. Thompson and get a reward. The host on the stage had taken a new card, and he handed it over to Sebastian Wyance, who had been waiting for a good while now as he smiled at the crowd below the stage. Now it's the time for the first class award. How about we get Mr. Wyance to announce the winner himself? Let me tell you a secret. The winner of the first class award this time is the only person who had gotten full marks in the history of the Hustruberg Math Olympiad. The crowd erupted in an uproar. Full marks with such difficult questions. Is this person a robot? The students of Class B were squeezing their way to where Gary was seated with Vivian in the lead. She wanted to be the first person from Class B to praise Gary. Jack and Wayne followed closely behind. Gary had brought glory to Class B, and they could not just leave him alone like that. Behind them were a few other students. All of them sincerely felt that Gary was just too awesome and did not expect him to win the second class award closest to first place. The host then continued, Then, let's invite our beloved Mr. Wyance to announce the winner of the first class award. Sebastian took the microphone from the host's hand. He smilingly looked at the anticipating students below as he said, The winner of first place in this math Olympiad is... As he said that, Sebastian looked down at the card, and when he saw the name on the card, his pupils suddenly shuddered as he paused for a few seconds without speaking. When Mr. Ellison saw his reaction, the former quickly realized what was going on and let out a helpless sigh. So, this old coot saw the name, huh? In such a bombastic way too. It's just straight up unfair. A look of disbelief soon appeared in Sebastian's eyes, but he quickly understood what was going on. When Merwin Monroe on the first row saw the look of surprise on the governor's usually impassive face, he was also taken aback. It can't be a coincidence, right? Eric Anderson also noticed Sebastian's bizarre reaction. He was seated close by, and his curiosity was literally clawing at him. He thought that it was a difficult name that had stumped Sebastian, and he was wondering if he could provide Sebastian a good impression if he stood up to help. After a moment of hesitation, he finally stood up and got close to take a look at the name on the card. As soon as he saw the name, Eric felt a bolt of lightning striking him on the head. That was no difficult name to pronounce. He could clearly see that name out of two common words. So, the reason Mr. Wyance paused is that, as he thought of this, Eric was sweating profusely, and no matter how he wiped them, they did not seem to dry off. They were not only the ones shocked, and everyone in the Royal Creek Institute too noticed something was strange, but very soon, everyone finally saw Sebastian's mouth move as he slowly read the name out. Nicole Riddle. Huh? Nicole got first place. Everyone in Class B was stunned. What? What did Mr. Wyance just say? First place? The first place that we had claimed could only belong to a robot is won by Nicole, the girl whom we had always looked down upon. Mr. Kennedy's sneering face froze as he opened his mouth in shock as he looked at the name that appeared on screen, completely stunned. What's going on? Am I hearing this? The first place winner is actually Nicole. This got to be a joke. Nora was also completely flabbergasted. She had been waiting to clown on Nicole, and now the latter got first place. Gary, who was walking toward Nicole, too stopped. The moment Sebastian announced her name, his expression instantly changed. Nicole Riddle, is this the Nicole I know? The first place, the person who got the perfect score, the person who surpassed me, is Nicole, the person I thought to be talking big? Recalling all that he had said to Nicole earlier as he thought that Nicole could not win this math Olympiad bet without him, the ridicule he gave her when he saw her doing the questions, what was all that for? As he thought of that, Gary wanted to hide inside a hole. Sebastian had regained his composure as his smiling voice soon echoed throughout the hall. Miss Nicole Riddle, please come onto the stage to receive your award. Miss Emerson had already recovered from her shock as she looked at Nicole and smiled gently. Go and collect your award. Don't waste time. Nicole nodded as she slowly got up and walked toward the stage. She did not do anything of note, yet there was an inexplicable edge to her person. Everyone looked at the person that had always been ridiculing and could not look away. Sebastian, too, looked at Nicole, who was making his way to him, as a proud look appeared in his eyes. This precious diamond he found will eventually prove her worth in time. Nicole walked to the stage and did not even look at Eric as she gently nodded at Sebastian. Sebastian, too, looked at Nicole standing before him. His voice was gentle and had a tinge of joy and care that was different from his distant official tone. Nicole, long time no see. When he said that, he did not move the microphone away, and his voice was instantly broadcast to all of the audience present. Everyone looked at the two in shock. They did not expect Sebastian Wyance to personally know Nicole, and he was catching up with her in full view of everyone. What kind of relationship do they have? Eric Anderson was totally dumbstruck, and Mr. Kennedy had frozen into a statue. Nicole actually knew Sebastian Wyance. Even Ms. Emerson was surprised at this scene. She did not know her student had such a background. Both Nora and Rain were even more shocked as their mouths were open agape. When they saw Sebastian treating Nicole so affectionately, they were very dumbfounded. Who is this person that we usually look down upon? Gary's hand clenched silently, and he was never clearer as to how foolish he was than now. He quietly walked back to his seat as he silently looked at Nicole, who was not too far away from him, with a complicated look in his eyes. Nicole gave Sebastian a helpless look. She clearly saw that he was speaking to her with the microphone close at hand, which meant that he deliberately wanted everyone to hear this. It made her speechless. Long time no see, Mr. Wyance. Even the host was stunned by this scene as he did not know how to proceed next. This was originally a very official awards ceremony, and now it had become a large-scale family reunion of sorts. Moreover, Sebastian was the one who started that. How am I supposed to interrupt him? Fortunately, the young lady was sensible enough as she pointed at the trophy in Sebastian's hand and softly said, "I'm here for that." Sebastian finally realized he was here to hand out the award after the reminder. He cleared his throat and handed the trophy to Nicole. "This is the award given by the Olympiad Committee. I will give you my own award later." As he said that, Sebastian blinked at Nicole. Her face was, however, bereft of any expression. She thanked him after receiving the award and turned around to leave. I cannot accept the reward from him, she thought. Everyone saw that Nicole was not giving Sebastian Wyance any face, and the host too frowned. Although Sebastian Wyance did not follow the protocols of the awards ceremony, his status was still up there. Isn't it too much for Nicole to not give him face like that? Thinking of this, the host stepped forward to stop Nicole. He whispered, "Stop, do not piss Mr. Wyance off." Just as he was about to pull Nicole, she dodged to the side and simply just walked off the stage. Immediately after, Sebastian's icy voice came from behind the host. "You are the one pissing me off." This time around, he was not speaking to the microphone, so only the host heard what he said. He looked at Sebastian in surprise, but the latter ignored him as he nodded to Mr. Ellison and then glanced at Merwin as they left the stage. Nicole returned to her seat and handed her trophy to Ms. Emerson. She then gave the stunned Mr. Kennedy an impassive look as she said, "Mr. Kennedy, I'll be waiting for you in class tomorrow." After that, Nicole ignored Mr. Kennedy's bitter look as she walked toward the hall's exit. Ms. Emerson stood there holding the trophy, and before she could react to what had happened, there were many congratulatory voices from the high school teachers around her. For her to raise a National Math Olympiad champion at such a young age, Ms. Emerson was about to get famous. How could those teachers let go of such a future great educator? Mr. Kennedy was shivering in anger as he watched Ms. Emerson being surrounded. The young male teacher beside him, however, gave him a respectful look. "Mr. Kennedy, I thought you were pulling my leg just now, but it turned out to be real. That Ms. Emerson sure is incredible, for her to produce the first and second place winners of the Math Olympiad. She is sure a role model. Excuse me, but I'll be heading over to have a look." The teacher walked away and disappeared into the crowd. Mr. Kennedy seethed with anger while staring at his retreating figure. This was the first time he felt like he hated his own mouth. Why does it feel like I've jinxed myself? Everything that I've said has come true, he thought. His thoughts suddenly took a sharp turn. Nicole knows Mr. Wyance. They seem pretty well acquainted, he thought with panic. Mr. Kennedy turned to look at his uncle, that was on the stage. He quickly ran up to him. "What's going on? How does Nicole know Mr. Wyance?" Mr. Kennedy asked. Eric turned to the dim-witted distant relative of his. He was annoyed about how Nicole treated him and had nowhere to vent. "You're asking me how she knows Mr. Wyance?" he sneered. If this dimwit didn't bring Nicole up during their phone call, none of this would have happened. Eric thought. He glared at Mr. Kennedy before turning around to chase after Sebastian. Eric was a portly man. Even though he ran with all his might, he still ran very slowly. Just as he ran out, he saw Sebastian's car leave. No matter how Eric shouted after them, they did not stop the vehicle. Sebastian ignored Eric's attempt at chasing after their car. He met the eyes of his driver and said indifferently, "Stop at the school gate for a while." Merwin glanced at Sebastian and said in a low voice, "We haven't got time to stop over. We must rush over to the bidding for that piece of land in Eastville." He knew that Sebastian had wanted to meet the child for a while now. However, they had more important things to do at hand. Sebastian looked at Merwin and gently massaged the area between his brows. "We still got time for a meal," he responded indifferently. Merwin was silent. He made a call and booked the best private lounge at the Grove. They were at the school gate now. Sebastian winded down the window and watched the students bustle about. Some students recognized him and looked at him with respect and admiration. He politely greeted them one by one. Then, he continued watching them quietly in his seat. Finally, Nicole appeared at the school gate. She sauntered out with her hands in her pockets. She stood out from the crowd. Sebastian had a slight smile on his face as he waved at Nicole. "Nicole, over here," Merwin called out. Nicole looked at the car in front of her with a blank expression. Everyone stared in disbelief as Nicole walked indifferently toward the black Volkswagen Phaeton. The people around them could not hide their shock. Who would have thought that Nicole, the constant subject of ridicule, knew Mr. Wyance? They seemed to be close too, they thought. However, Nicole did not care about what they thought. She watched Merwin get out of the car and open the door for her. Then, she thanked him resignedly. Everyone stared at Nicole as she got into the car. The car then sped out of Royal Creek Institute and disappeared from their sight. For a while, everyone was stunned. I mistreated Nicole and said nasty things to her. If she knows Mr. Wyance as well, what's going to become of me? They wondered. Eric finally caught up. He managed to catch a glimpse of someone leaving in Sebastian's car. He then quickly grabbed a random guy who was standing beside him. "Who left with Mr. Wyance just now?" he asked in a panicked tone. The guy looked frightened. He gawked at Eric for a moment before speaking. "Nicole. He left with Nicole," he said loudly. Nicole. It really was Nicole, Eric thought. He thought of what he said at the Riddle family's house and felt disheartened. Nicole actually knows Mr. Wyance, so she wasn't talking big, he thought again. At this thought, Eric unconsciously let go of the guy's collar. He paced around anxiously for a while. Then, he clapped his hands as if he had made up his mind and left. Gary and Ms. Emerson were surrounded by the crowd. The two of them did not manage to catch up with Nicole. He looked in the direction Nicole left and frowned. "What's going on?" "Nicole surpassed me in the Math Olympiad. She got a perfect score and won first place. But she never even did any practice questions. What's more, she knows Sebastian Wyance." Gary thought. He had many questions. However, he was still stuck in the crowd. Every single congratulatory, he was the second place. However, he still thought that Nicole, in first place, was a fraud. He was well aware that his current score was his limit. He did not know how to solve the problem, and he still would not be able to do so if given a second chance. Nicole surpassed me without breaking a sweat, he thought. Gary was feeling a mix of emotions. On countless occasions, he had a gut feeling that Nicole was not what she seemed. However, he foolishly chose to trust his judgment every single time. Gary thought of the lonely silhouette from the day of the competition. He stared at the empty hall entrance and felt immense regret. Meanwhile, Rain was also looking in the direction where Nicole had left. I never imagined Nicole to win first place. What's more, she knows Mr. Wyance, the man everyone in the Riddle family has been trying so hard to meet, she thought. Did Nicole do this intentionally? She hid this from everyone and did not help our family on purpose. She purposefully wanted me to make a fool out of myself, she thought again. She was outraged. Nora was standing with the students from Class A. She had turned purple from rage. Noah went beside her and whispered, "Nora, since Nicole is from the Riddle family, do you also know Sebastian Wyance? Nora and Nicole are sisters, after all. Compared to the rest of us, she should have a better understanding of Nicole's academic standards, right? What's more, Nicole must have met Sebastian Wyance through the Riddle family," Noah thought. Nora turned to glare at Noah. Noah must be adding salt to my wound on purpose, she thought. I have no idea how she got such a score. I also don't know how she knows Mr. Wyance. All I know is that she's merely a country bumpkin from Great Oak and has a decent looking. Noah stared at her with his mouth wide open when she said the second sentence. He seemed to understand what she said. Does Nicole and Mr. Wyance have that kind of relationship? He wondered. Vivian arrived just in time to hear Nora's words. She narrowed her eyes. If what Nora said is true, then all of this would make sense, she thought. She turned to look at Ms. Emerson and Gary with a jealous and unresigned expression. Nicole landed in the huge limelight this time. Even Gary was looking at her affectionately just now, Vivian thought. She was so jealous that she had lost all rationale. She had forgotten the lesson Nicole taught her earlier this morning. She turned around and started walking toward Ms. Emerson. Don't get too ahead of yourself, Ms. Emerson, Vivian said in a rather loud voice. Everyone present could hear her clearly. They all stopped talking and looked at her in shock. Ms. Emerson turned to her and slightly frowned. What do you mean? Vivian sneered. Ms. Emerson, did you ever consider the fact that all of us are aware of Nicole's academic level? She's a country bumpkin, so how could she possibly understand national-level math Olympiad questions? What's more, it's been years since someone got a perfect score. How could Nicole get a perfect score with her level? Someone must have leaked the questions to her, she said in a confident tone. Everyone looked at her in shock the moment they heard her words. None of them seemed to have thought of this. What does she mean? Is she saying that Mr. Wyance leaked the questions to Nicole? They wondered. Vivian noticed that many people were frowning. She continued speaking confidently. All of us saw how Mr. Wyance was treating Nicole. No matter how you look at them, they look close. Additionally, Nicole's looks are top tier even among actors. Do none of you realize the type of relationship the two of them share? At this point, many people had changed their expressions. They started to determine if there were truth to Vivian's words. Ms. Emerson looked disappointed as she watched Vivian make baseless accusations at Nicole. Vivian Collins, do you know that you're responsible for everything you've just said? Don't go around slandering others if you do not have the evidence, she said in a serious tone. Vivian's gaze wavered after hearing Ms. Emerson's words. However, she peered at Rain and quickly straightened her back. Isn't Rain a part of the Riddle family? She said that she doesn't know Mr. Wyance, so how does Nicole know him? She said loudly. She was implying that Nicole used her looks to bewitch Sebastian Wyance. Vivian felt more and more confident as she went on. Rain nodded in agreement and said confidently, I'm sure the Riddle family isn't acquainted with Mr. Wyance, so we don't know how Nicole knows Mr. Wyance. Everyone believed them even more after hearing Rain's words. Nora could not help but feel smug. An intentional remark was enough to make Vivian and Rain speak up. Even God is on my side, she thought. Many of the people looked at Ms. Emerson scornfully. I thought she was a genuine educator. Who would have thought that her student used such tactics to get the first place? How good of a teacher could she be if her student is so immoral? They thought. One of the teachers from San Giotto stepped forward and looked scornfully at Ms. Emerson. Ms. Emerson, you better tell us what's happening. How did she get first place? Does she have some unspeakable relationship with Mr. Wyance? We won't acknowledge it if this is how she got the first place, she said coldly. Gary also heard what Vivian and Rain said. He was already dubious about Nicole winning the first place, so he did not defend her. He stood aside and looked at Ms. Emerson indifferently. None of Ms. Emerson's students defended her nor Nicole. She was never good at handling such situations. She felt so anxious that she wanted to cry. Nicole isn't like that, I know that very well. But these people don't, she thought. Rain revealed an unnoticeable look of glee when she saw the scene unfold. See, I knew it. Nicole can never start anew. She's a country bumpkin. Who is she to get first place in the math Olympiad? Who is she to gain Mr. Wyance's favor? She's meant to be trampled like a speck of dust, she thought. Just as everyone was fixated on Ms. Emerson, a solemn voice came from the podium. What are you all talking about? I'd like to hear it too. Meanwhile, Nicole and Sebastian were heading to the Grove. Neither of them had a clue about what was happening in the hall. On the way to the restaurant, Sebastian asked Nicole what she had been up to. He then reminded her to take care of herself and to be attentive to her health despite her young age. On the other hand, Nicole responded to all of his questions and reminders. She felt as if he was close to talking her ear off by the time they reached the lounge. Sebastian seemed to have realized that he was talking too much. He quickly waved a waiter over to start ordering. Merwin was sensible enough to exit the room, leaving the two of them alone. It did not take long for the food to arrive. Sebastian stopped speaking and smiled while telling Nicole to eat up. However, he did not touch any of the food. He sat there and watched Nicole eat. Nicole did not urge him to eat but slowly chewed her food. Soon after, she was done eating. She wiped her mouth and asked casually, "What did you get? Show me, I'll take a look." Sebastian seemed happy when he heard her question. He immediately handed her the rough stone he had been toying with recently. He had a look of nervousness. "How's its luster?" Nicole grabbed the inconspicuous-looking stone. The stone seemed as if it was often held. It practically had smooth edges. It looked oddly shiny and had deep green swirls. Besides that, it had a flawless and smooth texture. She placed the stone on the table. The sunlight pouring in from the window made her eye color seem light and indescribably beautiful. "It's okay. The core is genuine, it's from Greyridge." The nervousness on his face diminished when he heard her words. He revealed a look of excitement and satisfaction. Then, he flashed a smile at Nicole. "My judgment now is better than before, right?" he asked in a seemingly casual tone. Nicole glanced at him and agreed. His judgment before was certainly significantly worse than now, she thought. Years ago, Sebastian had wanted to search for a piece of ocean gem. The texture of the ocean gem was like layers of fish scales and seemed as grandiose as the ocean. That was how the gemstone got its name. Back then, someone had spread the rumor that Great Oak had ocean gems. He quickly traveled to Great Oak to search for the gemstone. Even though he did not manage to find the gemstone, he found Nicole. Back then, Nicole was already exceptionally beautiful even though she was only 15. At the time, Sebastian was waiting for someone to crack open the geode. He had spent an exorbitant amount in hopes of bringing home an ocean gem. However, he did not find any despite spending an entire afternoon there. Nicole passed by coincidentally and saw him standing there like an easy mark. She then called him aside and handed him an average-looking geode. "Crack this open." Sebastian looked at Nicole, slightly shocked. He did not expect a little girl to have such a calm demeanor. For some reason, he believed the little girl. He handed the geode to the person in charge of cracking them open. He initially thought he was pouring money down the drain for fun. However, they saw a violet gemstone within when the geode was cracked open. Sebastian looked at Nicole in astonishment. On the other hand, Nicole's expression remained unchanged. She seemed to have expected such an outcome. The person who cracked the geode open wanted to keep the gem for himself, so he asked his cronies to surround Nicole and Sebastian. Since Sebastian's outing was impromptu, he did not bring anyone with him. He stood in front of Nicole even though he knew he did not have what it took to win them. "I'm so foolish," he thought to himself. This incident was also the reason Sebastian started bringing several bodyguards everywhere he went. Sebastian did not expect the geode marketplace to be so dangerous. They were robbing him after cracking open his geode. While he was a man of reason, these people seemed to speak with their fists. However, asking him to give away such a precious piece of gemstone would be equivalent to giving away a piece of himself. Nevertheless, he remembered that he was not in this alone. He had to take the extraordinary little girl into consideration as well. In the end, Sebastian watched the men inch closer and prepared to say that he would give them the gemstone. Quality gemstones can be bought again, but a life cannot. These people seem to be desperados. They even had bloodthirsty looks when they charged toward us, he thought. Just as he was about to give in, Nicole suddenly moved. She was moving so quickly he could barely see her movements. Everything happened within a few moments. To Sebastian's surprise, the burly men were suddenly on the ground howling in pain. Then, Nicole walked back to his side. "Excuse me, sir. Please call the police," she said calmly. After all, calling the police as a minor is rather troublesome, she thought. Sebastian had never seen such a calm child. He looked at her surprised and asked, "Why aren't you afraid?" Nicole glanced at him and seemed a little speechless. She handed Sebastian the geode and spoke with the voice of a songbird. "They are so puny. Why would I be afraid?" Sebastian felt even more surprised now. He also felt curious about the family who raised such a child. He turned around and wanted to send Nicole home. However, Nicole rejected him. She said she was worried that they would disrupt her grandmother's peace. Before she left, she told Sebastian that the stone was not locally produced. "There aren't any ocean gems here in Great Oak. These desperados created the rumor to scam the money of those who go to their geode marketplace. They charge $30,000 per geode. What's more, they take your life if you don't pay up. I came here today to teach them a lesson," she said casually. Sebastian felt his world turn upside down when he heard such words from a little girl. When he noticed her turning around to leave, he quickly asked, "Miss, what's your name?" He watched as the young girl turned to him. There was not a trace of emotion on her face. She looked at him quietly before speaking. "Nicole Wallace." Sebastian glanced at Nicole on the opposite side, who was still expressionless. This girl is incredibly indifferent and reliable, he thought. He then smiled and said, "Nicole, consider this piece of gem a reward for winning first place in the Math Olympiad." Nicole picked up the gemstone and handed it back to Sebastian. "Mr. Wyance, do keep this piece of gem for yourself. I appreciate the offer, but you've given me a lot in a year. I don't think there's enough space in my room anymore." Nicole knew that the gem meant something to Sebastian. He took it with him wherever he went. Thus, she did not want to take it away from him. The coldness in her eyes melted away at the thought of how he had been silently taking care of her and her grandmother over the past few years. Nicole did not expect to meet him under such circumstances since he was a busy man. Moreover, she was not always in Great Oak. Despite the two of them having contact for the past 3 years, they had only met a handful of times. Sebastian shook his head and looked at Nicole with a gentle smile on his face. "Take it, I insist." Nicole acknowledged his sincerity and took the gemstone in her hands. She held onto it while feeling its smooth texture. A faint smile appeared on Sebastian's face. However, there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. "What brings you to San Giotto?" he asked. She had always rejected my invitation to come to San Giotto, yet now she's here at the Royal Creek Institute? He glanced at Nicole for an answer. Nicole was toying with the gemstone in her hands. "When I was a child, I got lost. The Riddle family found me, so now I'm back," she said with a light and casual tone. "I see. That's why the place card had Nicole Riddle instead of Nicole Wallace," he thought. He looked at Nicole and realized she shared similarities with the Riddle family. The tender proposal came to mind when he thought of the Riddle family. "Since you're here, is there anything you need? You can always ask me for help." Ask him for help? Nicole glanced at Sebastian and immediately understood what he was referring to. She knew that he would choose the Riddle family if she asked. But Sean and Steve's effort would be in vain. She did not want her family to win like this. "We wouldn't be any different than the McCarthy family." Nicole then looked at Sebastian with a calm expression. "I only ask for you to be just, Mr. Wyance." Nicole had faith in Sean. She knew that there was no need for her to worry if he was doing the bidding. She only asked for Sebastian to be just. His eyes turned gentle when he heard her request. "Oh, Nicole," he said with a smile. His face was solemn when he noticed Nicole's clear and lingering eyes. "Rest assured, this bidding will be fair." A faint smile appeared on Nicole's face. She looked at Sebastian and said, "I believe you, Mr. Wyance. I would have done anything for her if she asked. But the Nicole that I know would never ask for more," he thought as he looked at Nicole in admiration. He then stood up when he heard Merwin knock on the door. "Come on, it's time for me to fulfill your request," he said with a smile. Nicole stood up and tagged along. Sebastian dropped her off at the school and went to the provincial office. Merwin glanced curiously at Sebastian and asked, "Is that the kid you were looking for? She seems to be cold and distant." Sebastian laughed at the sound of this. "Oh, Merwin, this is the first time your judgment has failed you. Nicole may seem cold, but she is 10 times better than those who use flattery to get their way. She could have ignored me at that time, but she decided to help someone she didn't know. How can someone say that she's cold? Alas, those bewitched by appearances will find it hard to see the truest form of beauty. She could have asked me for anything, but she just asked me to fulfill my duty as a decision-maker." Although she did not ask for it, Sebastian was already biased toward the Riddle family. Sebastian's face was full of resignation. He knew that his morals were not in the right place, but as long as the Riddle family did well, he would definitely choose them. He made up his mind when he thought of the satisfactory tender proposal Damien submitted. At that time, the confrontation in Royal Creek Institute's hall was still ongoing. The critics of Ms. Emerson turned their heads in surprise when they heard a sound. They were even more surprised to see Mr. Ellison getting down from the stage and walking toward them slowly and steadily.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.